Тема моего доклада – сохранение...
Hello. The topic of my report, Preservation of Nation-States, a decisive condition for saving humanity from the global political and sanitary dictatorship. I perceive the proposal to take part in the International Congress The Way of Humanity as an attempt to consider the imposed global policy of the sanitary dictatorship from the same global ideological positions. The world behind the scenes has set itself the goal of reducing the population of the Earth by a factor of several, and taking the remaining people under total political and sanitary control. Combat virus COVID-19 is the first attempt of a global malicious biological reformatting of humanity. Prior to that, HIV, avian and swine flu viruses, SARS, were tested. There was a gradual improvement of this type of biological weapon with the ultimate goal, the destruction of most of the world's population. What forces and who exactly benefits from compulsory vaccination of the population? Who benefits from the intersection of the activity of small and medium-sized businesses and the reduction in the work of industrial and other economic enterprises? The answer lies not in economics, politics or demography. The answer lies in the area of satanic opposition to the divine destiny of humanity on Earth. How can we resist this and how to organize European, human national resistance? It is already obvious that our opponents have a global project to establish a global world liberal fascist government on planet Earth. The global project of enemies must be opposed by our project of earthly humanity. The struggle against the global political and sanitary dictatorship must be based on the religious understanding of the earthly life of mankind. An important component of the fight against political and medical terrorism is the protection of racial and national identity, the preservation of the diversity of national states, the rapprochement of the history and national way of life of peoples, return of constitutional rights and freedoms of citizens, protection of socio-economic rights won in the course of national development, and the inadmissibility of their cancellation or reduction on the basis of pseudo-legal health restrictions. During the European civilizational campaign to the West, tens of millions of Indians of the Americas were exterminated. At the same time, many peoples and tribes completely ceased to exist. Even a brief review of the history of mankind from the point of view of its racial and national content shows that throughout history, many peoples of all races carried out the seizure of foreign lands on all continents. Accordingly, the statement that only white Europeans, Christians in world history are conquerors in the scientific sense is erroneous and incorrect. Politically, it is false and dangerous. The purpose of such statements is to present the white part of humanity as the guilty party on the path of human development and declare ecology a pseudoscience and suppress its study. Now in the world a situation has arisen and is aggravating when this majestic history of Europe and our entire planet wants to be cancelled by non-humans who have seized information, financial and medical power on Earth. They want to replace the path of moral, intellectual and physical perfection of man by the path of spiritual and moral degradation. Who are they? It is a world behind the scenes, a deep state associated with the dark, infernal forces of Satan. Already now, under the guise of sanitary restrictions, the elimination of political rights and freedoms in all states is taking place. Governments and other public authorities in all states, with rare exceptions, Sweden, Denmark, Belarus, obeyed the anti-human orders of the world behind the scenes. Both religion and science ultimately seek the truth and come to an understanding of God. God seeks to help every person in his earthly life. The task of Satan is to hinder in every possible way a person in the upbringing, education of his soul, to cultivate base feelings, sins and vices, that is, those qualities that the devil needs to fight with God. Satan's ultimate goal is to destroy the human race. It is here that we must look for the reasons for the creation of secret laboratories by the deep state to create the COVID-19 combat virus, designed to destroy the bulk of humanity and turn the remaining people into genetically modified organisms. How can one go from the current liberal fascist present to the bright European and world future? There is no significant difference between the rulers. French President Macron calling for the deconstruction of national history. German Chancellor Merkel, imposing a policy of multiculturalism on the Germans. Russian President Putin, who drowned Russia in lawlessness and moral decay. All of them, like most leaders of other countries, clicked their heels as a sign of slavish obedience to the owners of world money and introduced political and sanitary dictatorships in their countries. Over the 20 years of his rule, Putin has made senseless almost all political and state institutions. If lawlessness has become a law, then resistance to it becomes a duty, and non-resistance becomes a crime. Russia is on the verge of radical and decisive religious and spiritual national liberation and socio-economic changes. Remember and take into account, the Russian Revolution is inevitable. I am a Russian, Soviet officer, Colonel Vladimir Kvachkov. I appeal to the officer corps and all servicemen of the European armies, police and other power structures. We must become the backbone and foundation of a pan-European national resistance to the political and sanitary dictatorship. We know the composition of the Bilderberg Club, and the Trilateral Commission, and the Committee of 300. We know who developed the COVID-19 combat virus and is trying to establish a political and sanitary dictatorship on the wave of psychomedical terrorism. They are no longer hiding. They decided that the job is almost done and they have nothing to fear. They started a war against us. A retaliatory war awaits them. Now is the time. We need to unite against our common enemy and create a European partnership of officers. I have the honor, Colonel of the Main Intelligence Directorate of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces Vladimir Kvachkov.
Честь имею, полковник русской армии Владимир Kvachkov.